The desert sun beat down mercilessly on Forward Operating Base Ranger, a small military outpost nestled between rolling sand dunes in Afghanistan's Helmand province. The year was 2011, and the war had been raging for a decade. Among the dusty, tense and makeshift structures, soldiers went about their daily routines, unaware that their lives would soon depend on someone they barely noticed. Sarah Martinez had arrived at the base 3 weeks earlier, assigned as a combat medic to Bravo Company. At 22 years old, she was younger than most of the seasoned soldiers around her, and her petite frame made her appear even smaller against the backdrop of heavily armed infantry. The other soldiers had taken to calling her Tent Girl because she seemed to spend most of her time in the medical tent, organizing supplies and studying field manuals by lamplight. Colonel James Morrison watched from his command post as Martinez went about her work. He had seen many medics come and go during his 20-year career, but there was something different about this one. While other soldiers gathered around makeshift tables playing cards or sharing stories from home, Martinez remained focused on her medical training. She would practice bandaging techniques on willing volunteers, memorize medication dosages, and constantly update her knowledge of battlefield trauma care. The nickname Tent Girl wasn't meant to be cruel, but it highlighted how she stood apart from the rest. Sergeant Mike Thompson, a gruff veteran from Texas, had been the first to use the term. He watched as Martinez carefully arranged her medical supplies for the third time that week, each item placed with precision and purpose. "There goes Tent. Girl again," he had muttered to his buddies, "always fussing with those bandages and pills." But Martinez didn't mind the nickname. She understood that earning respect in a combat zone took time, especially for someone who looked like she should be in college rather than a war zone. Her father had been a paramedic in Los Angeles, and she had grown up hearing stories about life and death decisions made in seconds. She knew that when the moment came, she would be ready. The base housed approximately 200 soldiers from various units. Most were infantry, tasked with patrolling the dangerous roads and villages surrounding the outpost. Others included engineers, intelligence specialists, and support personnel. The medical team was small, consisting of Martinez, a senior medic named Corporal Rodriguez, and a physician assistant who visited weekly from a larger base 50 miles away. Captain David Chen, the company commander, had initially been skeptical about Martinez's assignment to his unit. Combat medics needed to be tough, quick-thinking, and capable of making life-or-death decisions under extreme pressure. When he first met Martinez, she seemed more like someone who belonged in a hospital than on a battlefield. Her voice was soft, her manner gentle, and she had a habit of asking detailed questions about medical protocols that sometimes annoyed the more experienced soldiers. However, Chen noticed that Martinez never complained about the harsh conditions. While other soldiers grumbled about the heat, the poor food, or the lack of privacy, she adapted quietly to military life. She woke before dawn to check her equipment, spent her free time studying medical texts downloaded onto a military-issued tablet, and volunteered for extra duties without being asked. The forward operating base was located in a strategically important area, controlling access to several mountain passes used by insurgent forces. The surrounding terrain was challenging, with rocky hills, narrow valleys, and sparse vegetation, providing cover for enemy fighters. Patrols ventured out daily, searching for weapons caches, gathering intelligence, and maintaining a presence in nearby villages. Life at the base followed a predictable routine. Soldiers woke at 500 hours for physical training and breakfast. Morning briefings covered intelligence updates, weather conditions, and patrol assignments. Throughout the day, various teams would depart for missions while others returned, dusty and tired from hours in the field. Evenings brought equipment, maintenance, mail call, and brief moments of relaxation before another night of guard duty began. Martinez quickly learned the rhythm of military life. She participated in regular training exercises, maintained her personal weapon, and attended briefings on enemy tactics and medical threats specific to the region. The other medics taught her about treating injuries common in desert warfare: heat exhaustion, shrapnel wounds, blast injuries from improvised explosive devices, and gunshot trauma. During her first week, Martinez had treated several minor injuries: a sprained ankle from a soldier who stepped in a hole during a night patrol, burns from a cook who accidentally touched a hot surface, and various cuts and scrapes from daily activities. Each case was routine, but she approached every patient with the same careful attention to detail that characterized everything she did. The soldiers gradually began to respect her dedication, even if they didn't fully understand it. Private Johnson, a 19-year-old from Ohio, had been her first patient. He had developed a severe case of heat rash during a long patrol and was embarrassed about seeking medical attention. Martinez treated him with professional care and discretion, never making him feel foolish for something that affected many soldiers in the desert climate. Word spread that the new medic was thorough and competent. Soldiers who might have ignored minor injuries began visiting the medical tent, trusting that Martinez would provide good care without judgment or unnecessary questions. She earned a reputation for being prepared, knowledgeable, and genuinely concerned about the welfare of everyone on the base. Colonel Morrison observed these developments with interest. He had commanded units in Iraq and Afghanistan for years and understood the importance of unit cohesion and trust. A medic who earned the confidence of the soldiers could mean the difference between life and death in combat situations. While Martinez still seemed young and inexperienced compared to the hardened veterans around her, she was proving herself in small but significant ways. As the weeks passed, the intensity of enemy activity in the region began to increase. Intelligence reports indicated that insurgent forces were planning something significant, possibly targeting the forward operating base itself. Patrol encounters with enemy fighters became more frequent and aggressive. The soldiers could sense that their relatively quiet deployment was about to change dramatically. Martinez continued her methodical preparation, unaware that she was about to face the greatest challenge of her military career. In the medical tent, surrounded by carefully organized supplies and equipment, she reviewed trauma protocols one more time, not knowing that very soon, the lives of every soldier on the base would depend on her skills, courage, and the knowledge she had worked so hard to master. The attack came without warning at 3:47 hours on a Tuesday morning in October. Martinez had been awake for 20 minutes, reviewing inventory lists by flashlight in the medical tent, when the first rocket-propelled grenade exploded near the command post. The blast shook the ground beneath her feet and sent her medical supplies tumbling from their carefully arranged shelves. Outside, sirens wailed as soldiers scrambled from their sleeping quarters, grabbing weapons and body armor. The base's defensive perimeter erupted in gunfire as sentries engaged targets moving through the darkness beyond the wire. Muzzle flashes lit up the pre-dawn sky like deadly fireworks, and the distinctive crack of AK-47 rifles answered the heavier thumping of American machine guns. Martinez moved with practiced efficiency, her months of preparation taking over despite the chaos surrounding her. She grabbed her medical bag, checked that her radio was functioning, and began setting up a casualty collection point inside the reinforced medical bunker. Her hands remained steady as she laid out trauma supplies: IV bags, tourniquets, pressure bandages, morphine syringes, and surgical instruments. The assault was unlike anything the base had experienced during Martinez's deployment. Intelligence reports later revealed that over 100 insurgent fighters had surrounded the outpost during the night, positioning themselves in the rocky hills and dried creek beds that provided natural cover. They had brought heavy weapons, mortars, machine guns, and rocket launchers capable of penetrating the base's defensive barriers. Colonel Morrison coordinated the defense from his command bunker, directing artillery support and calling for air assistance from helicopters stationed at a larger base 60 miles away. However, mechanical problems grounded the nearest aircraft, and thick morning fog prevented immediate air support. The soldiers of Bravo Company would have to hold their positions until help arrived. The first casualties began arriving at Martinez's position within minutes of the initial attack. Corporal Jackson stumbled through the bunker entrance, supported by two fellow soldiers. Shrapnel from a mortar round had torn through his left leg, severing an artery and causing massive bleeding. Martinez immediately applied a tourniquet above the wound, started an IV line, and administered pain medication while maintaining pressure on the injury. Before she could complete Jackson's treatment, 3 more wounded soldiers arrived simultaneously. Private Williams had taken a bullet through his shoulder, the round exiting cleanly but damaging muscle and bone. Sergeant Foster suffered from severe burns on his arms and face after an enemy rocket destroyed the fuel depot near his position. Specialist Martinez, no relation to the medic, had multiple shrapnel wounds across his back and legs. The scene inside the medical bunker became a controlled chaos of life-saving activity. Martinez moved between patients with remarkable calm, prioritizing treatments based on the severity of injuries. She applied pressure bandages to Williams's shoulder wound, administered burn treatment to Foster, and carefully extracted metal fragments from the other. Martinez's legs while monitoring Jackson's vital signs. Senior medic Corporal Rodriguez had been caught in his sleeping quarters when the attack began and suffered a concussion when his tent collapsed during the initial barrage. He managed to reach the medical bunker but was disoriented and unable to provide effective assistance. Martinez found herself essentially alone, responsible for treating what would eventually become 27 wounded soldiers. Captain Chen arrived at the medical position during a brief lull in the fighting, his uniform torn and dusty from diving for cover. He found Martinez working methodically through a growing line of casualties, her small hands covered in blood but her voice calm and reassuring as she spoke to each patient. She had transformed the bunker into an efficient trauma center, organizing wounded soldiers by priority and ensuring that critical cases received immediate attention. The fighting outside intensified as enemy forces attempted to breach the base's defensive perimeter. Machine gun fire rattled constantly, punctuated by the deeper explosions of mortars and grenades. Radio chatter filled the command frequency as squad leaders reported their positions and ammunition status. Several sections of the perimeter wall had been damaged and insurgent fighters were attempting to exploit these gaps. Martinez continued working despite the increasingly dangerous situation. When the bunker's lights failed due to damage to the power generator, she improvised with flashlights and glow sticks. When her initial supply of IV fluids ran low, she carefully rationed remaining bags while sending a runner to retrieve emergency medical supplies from other locations around the base. Private Thompson, the soldier who had originally nicknamed her Tent Girl, arrived at the medical bunker carrying Corporal Henderson, who had lost consciousness after taking shrapnel to the head. Thompson's own left arm hung useless at his side, but he had refused treatment until his wounded comrade received care. Martinez quickly assessed Henderson's head injury, determining that he needed immediate surgical intervention beyond her capabilities in the bunker. Making a critical decision, Martinez organized the most severely wounded soldiers for evacuation to a more secure location within the base. Using stretchers and volunteer carriers, she supervised the movement of 8 critical patients to the underground communications bunker, which offered better protection from incoming fire. She established a secondary treatment area there, continuing to provide care while maintaining radio contact with the primary medical position. The enemy assault reached its peak intensity around 0600 hours as insurgent forces launched a coordinated attack on the base's main gate. Explosions rocked the compound continuously, and several buildings suffered direct hits from rocket fire. The ammunition depot detonated in a massive fireball that sent debris raining across the entire base, causing additional casualties and starting fires that threatened other structures. Throughout the chaos, Martinez maintained her focus on treating the wounded. She performed emergency surgery on Henderson's head wound, using only the instruments available in her field kit, stopping the bleeding that threatened his life. She stabilized Williams's shoulder injury and prepared him for eventual evacuation. She managed Foster's burns with the limited supplies available, preventing infection and reducing his pain. As dawn broke over the battlefield, the intensity of the fighting began to decrease. Enemy forces had been unable to breach the base's defenses and were beginning to withdraw under pressure from American artillery fire. However, the threat remained significant, and evacuation helicopters could not land safely while hostile forces remained in the area. Martinez had been working continuously for over 3 hours, moving between patients, administering treatments, and coordinating care with the limited resources available. Her uniform was soaked with sweat and stained with blood, but she showed no signs of slowing down. Every few minutes, she checked on each patient, monitoring vital signs and adjusting treatments as needed. The radio crackled with reports from patrol units pursuing the retreating enemy forces. Air support was finally approaching the area, and evacuation helicopters were standing by at a secure landing zone 15 miles away. However, several wounded soldiers remained in critical condition and needed immediate transportation to a field hospital with full surgical capabilities. As the immediate crisis began to stabilize, Martinez started planning for the next phase of medical care. She organized patient files, documenting injuries and treatments for transfer to hospital personnel. She prepared critical patients for helicopter evacuation and identified those who could remain at the base for continued treatment. Her careful preparation and methodical approach had prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss of life. By 800 hours, the sound of gunfire had faded to sporadic shots as enemy forces retreated into the surrounding mountains. Martinez had been treating wounded soldiers for nearly 5 hours straight, her small frame moving tirelessly between patients scattered across 2 makeshift treatment areas. The morning sun cast long shadows through the damaged structures of Forward Operating Base Ranger, revealing the full extent of the night's devastation. Colonel Morrison surveyed the scene from his command post, noting the destroyed fuel depot, damaged communications equipment, and holes blown in the perimeter wall. Despite the intensity of the attack, his soldiers had held their positions and prevented the base from being overrun. However, the human cost was significant. 27 wounded soldiers, some with life-threatening injuries that required immediate evacuation. The first helicopter arrived at 08:30 hours, a military medical evacuation aircraft that landed outside the damaged main gate under cover of armed escort helicopters. Martinez had prepared her most critical patients for immediate transport. Corporal Henderson with his head injury, Corporal Jackson with severe leg trauma, and Sergeant Foster with extensive burns. She provided detailed medical reports to the flight medic, ensuring continuity of care during transport to the regional medical center. As the helicopter lifted off with its cargo of wounded soldiers, Martinez returned to treating the remaining casualties. Her methodical approach had created a triage system that prioritized care based on injury severity and available resources. Soldiers with minor wounds received basic treatment and were returned to duty. Those with moderate injuries were stabilized and prepared for evacuation on subsequent flights. Private Thompson, still nursing his injured arm, watched Martinez work with growing admiration. The young woman he had dismissed as tent girl had proven herself under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. Her calm demeanor and professional competence had undoubtedly saved lives during the chaotic hours of the attack. He began to understand that her quiet dedication to studying medical procedures had been preparation for exactly this type of situation. Captain Chen arrived at the medical area to check on his wounded soldiers and assess the overall medical situation. He found Martinez completing surgery on Private Williams' shoulder wound, carefully removing bone fragments and repairing damaged tissue. Her hands moved with precision despite obvious fatigue, and she maintained constant communication with her patient, explaining each procedure and providing reassurance. The base's communications officer reported that enemy forces had withdrawn beyond artillery range, but remained in the area. Intelligence suggested they might regroup for another attack, requiring the base to maintain high alert status. Medical evacuation flights would continue throughout the day, but each helicopter mission carried significant risk due to potential enemy fire from concealed positions in the surrounding hills. Martinez organized her remaining medical supplies, noting what had been consumed during the night's emergency treatments. Her careful inventory management before the attack had ensured adequate resources were available when needed most. She radioed headquarters to request resupply of critical items: blood plasma, antibiotics, surgical sutures, and pain medications that had been depleted during the mass casualty event. Senior medic Rodriguez had recovered sufficiently from his concussion to provide limited assistance, though he remained unsteady and unable to perform complex procedures. Martinez found herself continuing to function as the primary medical authority on the base, making decisions normally reserved for more experienced personnel. Her field manual knowledge and practical training proved invaluable in managing situations beyond her formal qualifications. The second evacuation helicopter arrived at 1100 hours, collecting 8 soldiers with moderate to severe injuries. Martinez again provided detailed handoff reports, ensuring that receiving medical teams would understand each patient's condition and treatment history. She had maintained meticulous records throughout the crisis, documenting medications administered, procedures performed, and changes in patient status. Among the wounded was Specialist Davis, a communications technician who had suffered internal injuries when his position took a direct hit from a rocket-propelled grenade. Martinez had performed emergency surgery to stop internal bleeding, working by flashlight in the damaged communications bunker, while enemy fire continued outside. Her quick action had prevented Davis from bleeding to death, though he would require extensive surgery at a major medical facility. As the afternoon progressed, Martinez finally had time to assess her own condition. She had been operating on adrenaline and professional focus for over 8 hours, maintaining concentration despite physical exhaustion and emotional stress. Her hands showed minor cuts from handling debris and equipment in the darkness, but she had avoided serious injury while treating others. The base's senior enlisted advisor, Sergeant Major Williams, visited the medical area to check on wounded soldiers and thank Martinez for her exceptional performance. A career soldier with 3 combat deployments, Williams had seen many medics under fire, but few had demonstrated the composure and competence shown by the young woman everyone called Tent Girl. Martinez began treating soldiers who had suffered minor injuries but had remained at their posts during the fighting. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, and stress-related symptoms were common after extended combat operations. She provided IV fluids, medication, and rest recommendations for soldiers who had pushed their physical limits during the night-long battle. The third evacuation flight departed at 1400 hours with 6 more wounded soldiers, including Private Martinez, who had suffered multiple shrapnel wounds. The medic had carefully cleaned and dressed each wound, administered antibiotics to prevent infection, and provided pain management throughout his treatment. Her attention to detail and gentle care had earned the respect and gratitude of every soldier she treated. By late afternoon, only soldiers with minor injuries remained at the base medical facility. Martinez had successfully managed the largest mass casualty event in the base's operational history, providing life-saving care to dozens of wounded soldiers while working largely alone under combat conditions. Her performance had exceeded all expectations and demonstrated remarkable medical skill and personal courage. Colonel Morrison reviewed reports from the medical evacuation flights and spoke with doctors at the receiving hospital about the condition of evacuated soldiers. Medical personnel at the regional center specifically commented on the quality of field treatment the wounded had received, noting that proper initial care had significantly improved their prognosis for full recovery. The base's chaplain, Captain Rodriguez, visited soldiers in the medical area to provide spiritual support and counseling for those affected by the traumatic events. He found Martinez sitting quietly outside the medical bunker, finally allowing herself a brief moment of rest after the longest and most challenging day of her military career. As evening approached, Martinez began preparing for the possibility of another attack. She restocked medical supplies, reorganized treatment areas, and reviewed lessons learned from the night's emergency response. Her systematic approach to preparation had proven its value during the crisis, and she was determined to be even better prepared for future challenges. The other soldiers at the base had begun to see Martinez differently. The nickname Tent Girl was still used, but now it carried respect rather than gentle mockery. She had proven herself in the most demanding circumstances possible, earning her place among the veteran soldiers who defended the remote outpost in Afghanistan's dangerous frontier region. 3 days after the major attack, Forward Operating Base Ranger remained on high alert, as intelligence reports indicated continued enemy activity in the surrounding region. Martinez had worked around the clock to establish a fully functional medical facility in the base's most secure bunker, relocating equipment and supplies from the damaged original medical tent. Her organizational skills and attention to detail ensured that medical capabilities were restored quickly despite the destruction caused by the assault. The wounded soldiers who remained at the base were recovering well under Martinez's continued care. Private Johnson, who had suffered a broken arm during the fighting, was amazed by the level of attention he received. Martinez checked on him every few hours, monitoring for signs of infection or complications, adjusting his pain medication, and providing encouragement during the difficult healing process. Word of Martinez's heroic performance during the attack had spread beyond the base through official military reports and personal communications. The Regional Medical Command sent a team of senior medical officers to assess the situation and gather information about the mass casualty response. They interviewed Martinez extensively, documenting her procedures and decision-making process for future training programs. Colonel Morrison received a classified communication from Division Headquarters requesting A detailed report on Martinez's actions during the attack. Military leadership at higher levels was taking notice of the exceptional performance by a relatively inexperienced medic who had saved numerous lives under extremely challenging conditions. The report would become part of her military record and influence future assignment decisions. The nickname Tent Girl had evolved into a term of respect and admiration among the soldiers at the base. New arrivals were told about the young medic who had single-handedly managed a crisis that could have resulted in catastrophic casualties. Veterans who had initially been skeptical of her youth and experience now sought her advice on medical matters and deferred to her expertise in health-related issues. Martinez continued her methodical approach to medical preparedness, but with new insights gained from real combat experience. She revised her supply organization based on what had been most needed during the emergency, created new protocols for mass casualty situations, and developed training materials to help other soldiers provide basic medical assistance. During future crises, Captain Chen observed the transformation in unit morale and cohesion following the successful defense of the base. Martinez's performance had demonstrated that every soldier, regardless of age or experience, could make critical contributions when properly trained and motivated. Her example inspired others to take their responsibilities more seriously and prepare more thoroughly for the challenges of combat deployment. The base received visits from military journalists documenting the attack and subsequent recovery efforts. Martinez was reluctant to be interviewed, preferring to focus on her medical duties rather than public recognition. However, Colonel Morrison encouraged her to share her story, understanding that her example could inspire other young soldiers and highlight the importance of thorough medical training. Senior Medic Rodriguez had made a full recovery from his concussion and returned to duty, but he now worked under Martinez's supervision for complex medical cases. Her demonstrated competence during the crisis had established her as the senior medical authority on the base, despite her junior rank and limited experience. Rodriguez accepted this role reversal gracefully, recognizing that combat performance, rather than time in service, determined true leadership. The base's defensive improvements included upgrading the medical facility with better protection against artillery and rocket attacks. Martinez worked with engineers to design a bunker system that could maintain full medical capabilities even during intense combat situations. Her experience during the attack provided valuable insights into the practical requirements for battlefield medical care. Daily patrol operations resumed with increased security measures and enhanced medical support. Martinez began accompanying some patrols as the primary medic, bringing her combat-tested skills directly to soldiers operating in dangerous territory. Her presence boosted confidence among patrol members, who knew they had access to expert medical care if needed. During a routine patrol in a nearby village, the unit encountered an improvised explosive device that wounded 2 soldiers and several Afghan civilians. Martinez immediately established a treatment area in a secure building, treating both American soldiers and local civilians with equal professional care. Her actions helped build positive relationships with the local population and demonstrated American commitment to protecting innocent people. The medical evacuation procedures developed during the major attack proved their value during smaller incidents. Martinez had created a streamlined system for preparing wounded soldiers for helicopter transport, ensuring that critical information accompanied patients and that receiving medical teams could continue appropriate treatment without delay. This system was adopted by other bases throughout the region. Martinez received a commendation letter from the commanding general of regional forces, recognizing her exceptional performance during the base attack and subsequent medical operations. The letter highlighted her courage under fire, professional competence, and positive impact on unit morale and effectiveness. It recommended her for accelerated promotion and assignment to positions of greater responsibility. The soldiers at the base organized an informal ceremony to recognize Martinez's contributions to their survival and success. Private Thompson, whose wounded arm had healed under her care, presented her with a hand-carved wooden plaque bearing the inscription, "Tent Girl Guardian, Angel of Bravo Company." The gift represented the genuine affection and respect she had earned from soldiers who had initially viewed her as an outsider. Military medical schools began incorporating Martinez's case study into their training curricula, using her decisions during the mass casualty event as examples of proper battlefield medical practice. Her systematic approach to triage, resource management, and patient care under extreme stress became a model for training future combat medics throughout the military system. The psychological impact of the successful medical response extended beyond the immediate casualties. Soldiers throughout the base felt more confident knowing they had access to proven medical expertise if wounded in future operations. This confidence translated into improved combat effectiveness and willingness to take necessary risks during patrol and defensive operations. Martinez began mentoring younger soldiers who expressed interest in medical training, sharing both technical knowledge and insights about maintaining composure under pressure. She emphasized the importance of thorough preparation, systematic thinking, and genuine concern for the welfare of fellow soldiers. Her teaching style reflected the same methodical approach that had characterized her own training. The Regional Medical Command assigned additional medical personnel to the base, recognizing its strategic importance and the quality of care provided by Martinez's team. However, she remained the senior medical authority due to her proven combat experience and exceptional performance during crisis situations. The new medics arrived eager to learn from someone who had demonstrated medical excellence under the most challenging possible conditions. Intelligence. Reports indicated that enemy forces were planning additional attacks on coalition bases throughout the region. Martinez used this information to further refine her emergency medical procedures, ensuring that the base would be prepared for any future mass casualty situations. Her experience had taught her that proper preparation could mean the difference between life and death for wounded soldiers. 6 weeks after the massive attack on Forward Operating Base Ranger, Martinez had become a legendary figure, not only within her own unit, but throughout the entire military region. Stories of Tent Girl saving the lives of 27 wounded soldiers spread through military communication networks, social media posts from deployed soldiers, and letters home to families across America. Her heroic actions had transformed her from an unknown medic into a symbol of courage and competence under fire. The regional command structure was undergoing changes that would significantly impact Martinez's military career. Colonel Morrison received orders for promotion and transfer to a Pentagon assignment, where he would help develop new combat medical training programs based on lessons learned during recent deployments. Before departing, he submitted a formal recommendation that Martinez receive the Army's highest medal for non-combat medical service. Major Sarah Phillips arrived at the base as Morrison's replacement, bringing extensive combat experience from multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. Phillips had specifically requested assignment to Forward Operating Base Ranger after reading reports about the successful defense and medical response during the October attack. She was eager to meet the young medic whose actions had gained attention. At the highest levels of military leadership, Martinez continued her daily medical duties with the same methodical approach that had characterized her work since arriving at the base. However, her responsibilities had expanded significantly beyond routine medical care. She now supervised a team of 6 medics, coordinated medical support for patrol operations throughout the region, and served as the primary medical advisor for base defensive planning. The psychological wounds from the attack were becoming apparent among some soldiers as the immediate crisis faded and normal routines resumed. Martinez recognized signs of post-traumatic stress in several soldiers who had experienced intense combat for the first time. She worked with the base chaplain and visiting mental health specialists to provide counseling and support for soldiers struggling with anxiety, sleep disorders, and emotional difficulties. Private Thompson, whose wounded arm had healed completely under Martinez's care, approached her with a personal request. He wanted to cross-train as a combat medic, inspired by her example during the attack. Thompson explained that witnessing her life-saving work had given him a new perspective on military service and a desire to help others in similar situations. Martinez agreed to provide additional medical training during off-duty hours. The base received an unexpected visit from General Patricia Hayes, the commanding officer of all coalition forces in Afghanistan. General Hayes had flown specifically to meet Martinez and assess the medical capabilities at Forward Operating Base Ranger. The visit demonstrated the high-level attention that Martinez's actions had generated within military leadership circles. During her meeting with General Hayes, Martinez maintained her characteristic humility and focus on professional duties rather than personal recognition. She provided detailed briefings on medical capabilities, discussed lessons learned from the mass casualty event, and offered recommendations for improving combat medical training throughout the military. Her practical insights and thoughtful analysis impressed the general, who recognized both technical competence and leadership potential. The medical facility at the base had been completely rebuilt with enhanced protective features and expanded capabilities. Martinez worked with military engineers to design treatment areas that could function effectively during combat situations, while providing optimal care for wounded soldiers. The new facility became a model for other forward operating bases. Throughout the region, international military medical personnel began visiting the base to observe Martinez's procedures and learn from her experience managing mass casualty situations. Medics from British, Canadian, and Australian forces requested training opportunities, recognizing that her practical experience could improve their own combat medical capabilities. These exchanges enhanced international cooperation and shared medical knowledge among coalition partners. Martinez received notification that she had been selected for accelerated promotion to sergeant, recognizing her exceptional performance and leadership during combat operations. The promotion would normally require several additional years of service, but her demonstrated competence under extreme conditions warranted expedited advancement. She would also receive additional medical training at the Army's premier combat medical school. The soldiers at Forward Operating Base Ranger organized a formal ceremony to mark Martinez's promotion and recognize her contributions to their unit's success. The event included soldiers she had treated during the attack, many of whom had returned to duty or made special trips to attend the ceremony. Their presence demonstrated the lasting impact of her medical care and personal attention during their recovery. Corporal Henderson, whose head injury had required emergency surgery during the attack, returned to the base after completing his medical treatment at a military hospital in Germany. His recovery had exceeded doctors' expectations, largely due to the immediate care he received from Martinez during the critical first hours after his injury. He presented her with a letter of gratitude signed by all the soldiers she had treated during the attack. The nickname Tent Girl had evolved into an official call sign used on military radio networks throughout the region. Other units requested medical consultation from Tent Girl when dealing with complex trauma cases or planning medical support for dangerous operations. Her reputation for medical excellence had made her a regional resource for combat medical expertise. Martinez began developing a comprehensive training program for combat medics based on her experience during the base attack. The program emphasized systematic preparation, resource management under stress, and decision-making in chaotic environments. Military medical schools expressed interest in incorporating her curriculum into their standard training programs for future combat medics. Media attention continued to focus on Martinez's story, with several national news organizations requesting interviews about her experience. Military public affairs officers worked to balance legitimate public interest with operational security requirements, ensuring that her story could inspire others without compromising military operations or personal safety. The base received intelligence reports indicating that enemy forces were planning a major offensive against coalition positions throughout the region. Martinez used this information to enhance her medical preparedness, ensuring that supplies, equipment, and personnel were positioned to respond effectively to multiple casualty situations. Her experience had taught her that thorough preparation was essential for saving lives during combat operations. Colonel Morrison's final act before leaving the base was to submit a comprehensive report documenting Martinez's contributions to unit success and recommending her for consideration for prestigious military assignments. He wrote that her combination of technical competence, leadership ability, and courage under fire represented the best qualities of military service and deserved recognition at the highest levels. As Martinez prepared for her own eventual transfer to advanced medical training, she reflected on the transformation that had occurred since her arrival at Forward Operating Base Ranger. The shy young woman who had been nicknamed Tent Girl had become a confident leader whose skills and judgment were trusted by soldiers throughout the region. Her journey from unknown medic to military hero demonstrated that heroism often emerges from careful preparation, professional dedication, and genuine concern for others. 2 years after the legendary defense of Forward Operating Base Ranger, Sergeant Sarah Martinez stood before a packed auditorium at the Army Medical Command headquarters in San Antonio, Texas. She was delivering the keynote address at the annual Combat Medical Excellence Conference, sharing her experiences with hundreds of military medical professionals from around the world. The young woman, once known as Tent Girl, had become one of the military's most respected voices on battlefield medical care. The transformation in Martinez's career had been remarkable. Following her heroic actions during the base attack, she had received the Distinguished Service Cross, the military's second highest decoration for valor. The citation specifically mentioned her life-saving treatment of 27 wounded soldiers while working alone under intense enemy fire. The medal ceremony at the Pentagon had been attended by senior military leadership and the families of soldiers whose lives she had saved. Colonel Morrison, now serving as Director of Combat Medical Training at the Pentagon, introduced Martinez to the conference audience. He recounted the events of that October morning in Afghanistan, describing how a young medic's preparation, courage, and professional competence had prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss of life. His voice carried genuine emotion as he spoke about Martinez's impact on military medical training and the lives of countless soldiers. Martinez's presentation focused on the practical lessons learned from managing mass casualty situations in combat environments. She emphasized the importance of systematic preparation, maintaining detailed medical supplies and developing procedures that could function effectively under extreme stress. Her speaking style reflected the same methodical approach that had characterized her medical practice, presenting complex information in clear, understandable terms. The audience included combat medics who had studied Martinez's case as part of their training, medical officers seeking to improve their unit's capabilities, and military researchers developing new battlefield medical technologies. Many had traveled thousands of miles specifically to hear her speak and learn from her experience. Her reputation as both a battlefield hero and a medical innovator had made her one of the most sought-after speakers in military medical circles. During the question and answer session, a young medic from Fort Bragg asked Martinez about maintaining composure during life-threatening emergencies. Martinez explained that confidence came from thorough preparation and systematic thinking rather than natural fearlessness. She encouraged the audience to practice medical procedures repeatedly, study various scenarios, and develop the muscle memory that would serve them during actual emergencies. The conference concluded with the presentation of the annual Combat Medical Excellence Award to Martinez, recognizing her outstanding contributions to military medical practice and training. The award included a scholarship for advanced medical education and assignment to the Army's premier medical research facility. Martinez accepted the honor on behalf of all combat medics serving in dangerous locations around the world. Following the conference, Martinez returned to her current assignment at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where she worked with severely wounded soldiers recovering from combat injuries. Her experience as a battlefield medic provided unique insights into the psychological and physical challenges faced by wounded veterans. Patients specifically requested assignment to her unit, knowing that she understood their experiences and could provide both medical expertise and emotional support. The medical procedures and training programs developed by Martinez had been adopted throughout the military medical system. Her systematic approach to mass casualty management was now standard training for all combat medics, and her supply organization methods were used at military medical facilities worldwide. Military medical schools regularly invited her to speak to new classes of medical personnel. Private Thompson, who had been inspired by Martinez's example to become a medic himself, was now serving as a combat medic in Iraq. He regularly corresponded with Martinez, sharing his experiences and seeking advice on complex medical cases. Their friendship represented the lasting impact of her mentorship and the way heroic actions could inspire others to serve with distinction. The soldiers from Forward Operating Base Ranger had scattered to assignments around the world, but they maintained contact through social media and reunions. Martinez remained the central figure in their network, the person whose actions had saved their lives and created lasting bonds among the unit members. Many had named daughters after her, ensuring that her legacy would continue in the next generation. Corporal Henderson, whose head injury had been successfully treated during the attack, completed his military service and became a civilian paramedic in his hometown of Denver, Colorado. He credited Martinez with saving not only his life, but also providing the inspiration for his career in emergency medical services. His success story was one of many among the soldiers she had treated during that critical night in Afghanistan. Martinez received regular invitations to speak at civilian medical conferences, sharing military medical innovations with emergency room doctors, paramedics, and trauma surgeons. Her experience bridging military and civilian medical practice helped improve emergency care throughout the American healthcare system. Medical schools invited her to speak to students about courage, preparation, and making critical decisions under pressure. The documentary film about Martinez's story, titled "Tent Girl: A Hero's Journey," premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival and was later broadcast on national television. The film highlighted not only her heroic actions during the attack, but also her systematic approach to preparation and her genuine concern for the welfare of fellow soldiers. It inspired thousands of young people to consider careers in military or civilian medical service. Colonel Morrison's prediction about Martinez's potential for senior leadership proved accurate. She was selected for the Army's most prestigious medical officer development program, which would prepare her for command positions at major military medical facilities. Her combination of combat experience, technical expertise, and proven leadership ability made her an ideal candidate for senior medical leadership roles. The medical facility at Forward Operating Base Ranger was named the Martinez Medical Center in recognition of her contributions to military medical care. The facility continued to serve as a model for battlefield medical capabilities, incorporating the lessons learned from her experience into its design and operational procedures. Medical personnel from around the world visited the facility to study her methods and techniques. As Martinez prepared for her next assignment as a major medical research position, she reflected on the journey that had begun with her arrival at a remote base in Afghanistan. The quiet young woman who had been nicknamed Tent Girl for her dedication to medical preparation had become a nationally recognized expert whose innovations had saved countless lives. Her story demonstrated that heroism often emerged from systematic preparation, professional dedication, and genuine concern for others. The legacy of Tent Girl extended far beyond the 27 soldiers whose lives she had saved during one dramatic night in Afghanistan. Her example had inspired a generation of military medical personnel to pursue excellence in their training and service. Military medical schools, training programs, and operational procedures throughout the defense establishment reflected her influence and continued her mission of providing the best possible medical care to America's soldiers. The final entry in Colonel Morrison's official report on the Forward Operating Base Ranger attack contained a simple but powerful statement. Sergeant Martinez's actions during this engagement represent the finest traditions of military medical service and demonstrate that proper preparation, combined with courage and competence, can overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Her example should inspire all who serve in military medical roles. That assessment had proven prophetic as Martinez's influence continued to shape military medical practice years after her heroic night as Tent Girl.